Today, I'll be ranking the coasters of Ohio, my home state. Ohio is one of the more stacked coaster states, which might be a surprise to many. It's up there with California, Texas, Pennsylvania, and Florida for the best coaster state. Ohio has some amazing rides, and I'll be ranking them in a top 10. But before we start, Top Thrill 2 will not be on the list since I haven't ridden it because it refuses to open, but other than that, let's start. At number 10 is Val Raven. This ride is severely underrated, and I don't understand why people hate it. It's a solid ride. I don't understand why people have such high expectations for a dive coaster, like it's going to be the best ride in the park. But the ride's first drop is amazing and world class, and the vests do restrict the airtime a little bit, but personally, I don't think they're that bad. Then you go through Immelman, which is okay, and then you go through another great vertical drop off the mid-course. Then you finish with a good 0G roll and a fun, solid airtime hill. Very underrated. I don't understand why the hate is so insane, and this is definitely a top 10 ride in Ohio. Next up is the first B&M invert on the list, which is Raptor. This is a above average looper in my opinion. This ride is built on intensity and is potentially the most intense ride in Ohio. You start off with a pretty good drop and head into a very intense loop. Then you hit a very good and whippy 0G roll, and it's one of the better ones that I've been on. You roll through the mid-course and you hit the finale. Two very whippy corkscrews, and then maybe the most intense moment in all Ohio, the double helix. The double helix is a good 10 seconds of straight 4 Gs, and it's so intense but so fun. Overall, a very fun ride. The second invert is Banshee. I don't think that it's as intense as Raptor, but it's still pretty intense. You start off with the best inverted drop that just whips you to the right. You go through a dive loop and a loop, which are pretty intense, and they're great to look at from the midway. A 0G roll is up next, which is alright compared to Raptors, and then you hit the pretzel knot. A very forceful inversion that is multiple seconds of sustained Gs, and it's very unique. Then you hit a unique element for this type of ride, a slow roll. The slow roll has insane hang time, and it spices it up a little bit compared to just intense inversion after intense inversion. The vests do tighten up a bit, but again, it doesn't bother me, so that's why I put Banshee at 8. In 7th place is another great looper, Gatekeeper. This ride is another very underrated ride, and it's just very fun. The 0G roll through the keyholes is a great leg and arm chopper that feels like you're going to smack right into it. And the corkscrew and the other rolls are very fun as well. You can't forget the wing over drop, where in the front you get insane hang time, and in the back you get whipped over. This ride is another where people would say the vests ruin the ride, but I think that the vests are just way overhated, and this ride doesn't have any airtime, so it's not really that bad. This is a smooth, fun, enjoyable experience that I think is definitely way overhated. At 6 is the only Woody on the list, Mystic Timbers. I do think this ride is overrated since people have it in their top 25 overall, which is crazy to me. But this is still a very good ride because it is at number 6. It starts off with a solid drop that would be better straight, but it curving to the left is still good. You rise into a large hill, which is the highest point of the ride other than the first drop. You get good sustained airtime, and then you drop down into the best part of the ride. It's loads of low-to-the-ground hills that have amazing floater airtime and laterals. You stayed low to the ground for the entire ride, making it a pretty good experience and a deserving ride of number 6. Up next is Millennium Force. This is the tallest coaster on the list, and it's amazing from start to finish. You go up the lift hill, which is pretty fast and allows you to get amazing views of the park and Lake Erie. Then you have an amazing drop that lasts forever and has great floater airtime the entire way down. Even though the overbanks are pretty repetitive, they are pretty intense, especially the first one. And the airtime hills do have mediocre airtime, but I think that's okay. And you finish with a very good speed hill that has a great pop of airtime for a good finale. Hilly has great speed, and the sense of speed is like nothing else that I've been on. This is a very good ride, but I wish the airtime hills were a little bit better, but it's still very good. The only B&M hyper in Ohio is DiamondB. This ride is very, very good. This ride starts off with another amazing drop with loads of airtime. Then you hit some of the best airtime moments in Ohio with its 2 big airtime hills. These hills have amazing flow ejector airtime for a good 4 to 5 seconds each. And since the B&M clamshells are amazing, it allows for all that great airtime. Then you hit the turnaround, which is a little bumpy, and you go into a trimmed hill, but you still get solid airtime. Then you hit the mid-course, which does usually slow down the train a little bit, but that doesn't stop it from having an amazing drop off the mid-course. You hit 2 more hills, a helix, and a splashdown, which is pretty cool to look at. Overall, a great hyper that has a ton of airtime, and people say it's rough, but it's not enough to ruin the ride. Number 3 is Orion. I do think that Orion is slightly better than Millennium Force and Diamondback. This ride has Diamondback's drop, but it's 100 feet taller. The wave turn may not give any airtime, but being up 200 feet in the air and being sideways is just a really cool experience that not many other coasters have. You get to the turnaround, which is okay, but then you hit the speed hill, which has sustained ejector airtime that a B&M coaster wouldn't usually give you. Then you hit a normal hill, which is good, but it is trimmed, so it does kill a lot of the good airtime, but it's still great. Then you have a pretty intense helix and fly into the final element, which has some pretty strong sideways airtime and a great way to finish the ride. The combination of speed and a smooth experience from start to finish, while also throwing in some good airtime, is why I put Orion at number 3. Up next is Maverick. This ride is so good, and it would be number 1 in almost any other state, but there is one that I do slightly have edging it out. You start off with the best drop in Ohio with a 95-degree drop with insane ejector airtime. Then you hit some whippy turns and an amazing airtime hill that throws you straight into the bar with some more intense ejector airtime. You then go through a horseshoe roll, which is like 2 0G rolls, so I think they're pretty good. After the horseshoe roll, you hit the 70-mile-per-hour launch, which is so good and easily the best launch in Ohio after Dragster's closure. You finish with 2 snappy stango dives, which are unique and a great way to end the ride on a high note. This ride is amazing, but the only bad thing about it is that the second half doesn't really have much airtime, and the big bar for a restraint isn't very good, but this ride is still awesome and a great number 2 for Cedar Point. Finally, in first place in the best coaster in Ohio is Steel Vengeance. This ride is the best coaster that I've been on, and it's honestly perfect for what I like in a coaster. Steel Vengeance starts off with an amazing first drop that has amazing ejector airtime and a great way to start. Steve has the most airtime out of all coasters, and you will feel all 25 seconds of that airtime throughout the entire ride. And the airtime is some of the strongest in the world, leaving your knees weak from the insane airtime. It's also insanely long, being about 1.5 minutes of pure craziness, and the ending where you don't even know where you're going is a great way to end this amazing ride. Steel Vengeance is just simply the best coaster in the world, and I don't know if there's many other coasters in the world that I would like more. That was my top 10 roller coasters in Ohio. Subscribe, vote on my community tab since I like making videos that you guys want to watch, and I was wondering if you guys would want to see me make a video on my top 10 coasters in Florida. But other than that, have a great day.